Thanksgiving in Kat's family was always a performance, not a holiday. The dining room looked like a magazine spread, polished silverware, a turkey so glossy it barely looked real, candles flickering like they'd been rehearsed. Everyone spoke in soft, polite tones, the kind meant to make guests believe everything was perfect. But tonight, the perfection was tight, brittle, too intentional. Kat sat quietly at the far end of the table, hands folded, her back straight. She could feel Lily's eyes on her, watching, analyzing, almost anticipating something. Lily always watched too carefully, like she wanted to catch Kat slipping. Then, right as the room finally settled, her mother leaned forward with her trademark smile, the one that never reached her eyes. "So, Kat," she said loudly enough for the entire table to hear, "when's your wedding? Or are we waiting another year?" The clink of forks paused. Lily froze. Kat's father shifted in his seat. Everyone was listening. Kat took a breath, steady, controlled. "I already had mine," she said, her voice soft but unmistakable. 6 months ago." The room went dead still. Her mother blinked, as if she couldn't process the words. "What are you talking about?" Kat looked around the table, meeting each stunned face. "You all got invitations." Her father's mouth opened, then barely released a whisper. We never got them." But Kat didn't flinch. Instead, she reached slowly into her bag. The motion alone sent a ripple of tension across the table. Chairs creaked. Someone sucked in a sharp breath. Lily finally looked away. Kat's hand closed around something inside the bag. The entire room leaned in, silent and waiting. And that's when everything they'd been hiding finally surfaced. "But to understand how we got here, you need to know what my childhood was really like. Before I ever understood what favoritism was, I understood my place in the house. One child shined and the other made room for the light. Lily was the star, brilliant, polished, always positioned front and center. And me. I learned early how to step aside without being asked, and why Mother curated Lily's life like a showroom collection. Every detail, every activity, every accomplishment was arranged, polished, displayed. Lily didn't just take dance classes. She had custom-made costumes and private instructors. Her trophies didn't just sit on shelves. They were spotlighted, dusted daily, rearranged seasonally like museum pieces. Meanwhile, when I came home excited with my second-place science fair ribbon, my mother smiled distractedly and said, "Sweetie, don't put that on the fridge yet. We're doing Lily's headshots today." I still remember standing in the hallway, clutching my ribbon, watching my mother angle lamps and adjust backdrops for the perfect photo of Lily. Every time the flash went off, it felt like another reminder. Lily mattered. I was background. The hallway in our house was proof. What other families used for family photos, mine used as a shrine. A long, glossy gallery of Lily's awards, certificates, dance photos, acceptance letters. Frame after frame after frame. Not a single picture of me until I was almost 14. And even then, I was tucked into the corner of a group shot from a summer camp I barely wanted to attend, BY High School. I didn't even bother handing my achievements to my parents anymore. When my essay got published in the local paper, I left the copy on the kitchen counter. It disappeared overnight, probably tossed with the grocery receipts. When Lily got her dance scholarship, the whole house celebrated for a week. That's the thing people don't understand. Patterns don't stay patterns. They become structure. And eventually, structure becomes system. That I stopped expecting fairness. I stopped looking for space. Instead, I learned how to survive quietly, slipping through the cracks of their attention, doing my own work, building a life they never bothered to notice. I didn't resent Lily. I just realized resentment required attention, and I didn't have any left to give. I didn't break the cycle. I adapted to it. Until Seattle changed everything. When I packed my car and drove 3 hours north, people whispered that I was running away. But it never felt like running. It felt like oxygen, like stepping out of a room I'd been holding my breath in for years. My Seattle apartment was small enough that I could cross it in 6 steps, but the tall windows made it feel like freedom. Sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors every morning, and for the first time, it felt like the light was meant for me too. My job in environmental data wasn't glamorous, but it made sense. Numbers didn't compete. Patterns didn't ask for permission. Data didn't play favorites. In Seattle, I didn't have to shrink to make space for someone else. I could grow quietly, steadily. And then Ethan walked into my life. He didn't arrive with fireworks, just sincerity. He listened with genuine curiosity, the kind that made me feel like every detail of my life mattered. When I talked about my projects, he didn't nod politely. He asked follow-up questions. Thoughtful ones. Real ones. He saw me in ways my own family never attempted. Meeting his parents, Robert and Helen, was like opening a door into a different kind of family. Helen hugged me with warmth that felt immediate and safe. Nothing like my mother's quick, stiff checkbox hugs, the ones she gave just to say she'd done it. And Robert remembered specifics about my work that even I forgot I mentioned. They made me feel welcomed, not tolerated. 6 months later, on a foggy June morning by the water, Ethan proposed. The world was quiet, wrapped in mist, and his voice shook as he asked me to marry him. I didn't even need to think. We picked a small coastal chapel. Simple, intimate, filled with people who actually knew us. And still, a tiny hope lived in me. That maybe, just once, my family would show up. That I did everything right. I designed invitations, triple-checked addresses, required signatures. And when the tracking showed delivered, I thought I could finally breathe. I was so wrong. For a week after the invitations were marked delivered, I checked my phone the way people check for bad news. Constantly, cautiously, almost bracing for impact. But nothing came. No calls. No text. Not even a question mark from my mother, who usually reacted to anything slightly unexpected with dramatic urgency. By week 2, the silence felt heavier. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the mail got mixed up. Maybe they were busy. Maybe they were planning a surprise. But even as I whispered excuses to myself, something inside me tightened. My family had never been great at celebrating me, but they weren't the type to ignore something as big as a wedding. When the 3rd week rolled in, I caved. I called my mother, straight to voicemail. I called my father. "I'll call later," his automated text said, the same one he used when he wanted to end conversations before they began. Lily didn't answer at all. I stared at my phone, waiting for the typing bubbles that never appeared. Then one night, I opened the family group chat to send a last attempt at a reminder. And it wasn't there. Not the conversation. Not the group name. Not even the thread. I scrolled. Refresh. Checked my settings. Nothing. I hadn't been removed loudly. I had been erased quietly. Like I'd never been part of it at all. The wedding day came. And while the coastal chapel glowed with soft light and the people who loved us filled the space with warmth, there was an empty stretch of pews in the back that I couldn't ignore. The place where my family should have been. Ethan noticed. Of course he did. A week later, he gently said, "Maybe we should check email logs." He wasn't accusing anyone, just trying to help me breathe again, so we did. And buried in the activity records for my parents' shared email account was something unmistakable. The invitation email opened. Then opened again. Then deleted. Not junked. Not filtered. Deleted manually. A cold realization washed over me. This wasn't a mistake. Someone had gone out of their way. And the worst part, I already knew who. But suspicion isn't proof. And I wasn't ready to confront an entire family with only a gut feeling and a deleted email, so I went back to the beginning. Tracking numbers, timestamps, delivery scans. That's when I pulled up the postal receipts and saw something that made my blood run cold. But I needed proof. So I pulled up the tracking receipts and saw something that made my blood run cold. There were 4 tracking receipts in total. 1 for each invitation I sent. 4 neat scans. 4 confirmed deliveries. And on every single one of them, the signature line carried the same looping curl, the same dramatic flourish at the end of the Y. The same handwriting I'd grown up seeing on birthday cards, chore charts, and passive-aggressive notes taped to the fridge. Lily, she hadn't just forgotten. She hadn't misplaced them. She intercepted them. I stared at the signatures so long the ink almost blurred. Ethan set a hand on my shoulder, grounding me, but inside, something old and familiar cracked open. This wasn't new pain. It was an old wound, reopened with precision. Of course she signed for them. Lily had always been the unofficial gatekeeper of the house. She sorted the mail before anyone else touched it. She screened calls to keep the house organized. She filtered information long before the rest of us ever saw it. Control was her currency. Attention was her oxygen. And suddenly, the timeline clicked into place: her own wedding, 350 guests, a ballroom dripping with chandeliers, a weekend-long spectacle, had been in September, barely 3 months before mine. My wedding didn't threaten her relationship. It threatened her spotlight. Damn, my wedding could draw attention from hers. Even a little. Even unintentionally. And that alone was unforgivable in Lily's universe. Ethan looked at me, voice soft but steady. "Kat, what do you want to do?" I didn't answer right away. Because anger wasn't the loudest emotion rising in me. It was a quieter one. Sharper. Sadder. What do you do when people you love choose not to see you? Not accidentally. Not unknowingly. But intentionally. That I kept staring at the receipts until they felt heavier than paper. Like they were holding every memory I'd buried from childhood. Every time Lily spoke over me. Every time my parents let her. Every time I learned to shrink so she could shine. Part of me wanted to disappear again. Skip Thanksgiving. Avoid the confrontation. Let them keep believing their version of the story. But disappearing was what built this entire mess. Oh, I made my choice. I almost skipped Thanksgiving. Almost let them keep pretending I didn't exist. But pretending was what built this mess in the first place. So I went and I brought the receipts. The dining room looked like it always did on holidays. Too perfect to feel real. A white tablecloth stretched smooth and unwrinkled across the long oak table, polished silver catching the warm light from the chandelier. Every napkin was folded in a crisp triangle. Every chair was perfectly aligned. It was the kind of presentation my mother lived for. A display, not a gathering. Lily stood near the window, posing for photos as if she were the entertainment. My mother and her husband, Ryan, angled their phones, praising the lighting, the dress, the hair. I slipped in quietly. No one noticed. No one paused. Not even a glance. I took my seat across from Lily, the chair that had always felt like the leftover one. The place you put someone because every other spot had already been claimed. Lily didn't sit until her photos were done. She moved with polished confidence. The kind that came from a lifetime of being told the world revolved around her. Dinner began with the usual script. My mother launched into a glowing retelling of Lily's September wedding. The floral arches, the champagne tower, the compliments from guests. She recited it like a narrator delivering a royal documentary. Each detail was perfect, each memory rehearsed, and then she turned to me with a smile too wide to be kind. "So, Kat, when's your wedding? Or are we waiting another year?" I placed my fork down, the clink louder than it should have been. I already had mine. The room stilled. My father blinked. Ryan's hand froze mid-cut. Lily's smile didn't fade, it just hardened. "You had what?" my mother asked. "My wedding. 6 months ago." I met each of their eyes. "You got invitations." My father inhaled sharply. "We never got any invitations." I nodded once. "I figured you'd say that." I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and placed it on the center of the table like a card in a game no one realized we'd been playing. This was the line I'd never crossed before. The boundary I'd never drawn. I opened the first receipt. The screen glowed. A signature appeared at the bottom and my mother leaned in. "Is that delivery confirmation?" I said. "Signed for at your house." I swiped to the next receipt. Same address. Same date. Same looping signature. Swipe. Another. Swipe. Another. 4 receipts. 4 signatures. Lily's signature. The curl on the Y was unmistakable. Dramatic, practiced. The same flourish she'd been perfecting since she was 12. My mother gasped, a sharp, involuntary sound. Ryan's shoulders stiffened. My father leaned forward, squinting, searching for any explanation that wouldn't shatter the picture-perfect illusion he clung to. Lily didn't move, that was her tell. Stillness. She froze when she was cornered, always had. Her entire body went statue quiet, as if she believed stillness could make her invisible. But it was too late. Everyone saw the truth now. It was on the table, literal, undeniable, glowing back at them in digital ink. And as the truth filled that room, I watched my family's perfect story finally crack open. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the low hum of the chandelier above us, vibrating with the tension in the room. Damn, why mother was the first to break. This isn't right. Lily would never do something like this. Her voice wavered between outrage and desperation, the kind she reserved for moments when her reality was being threatened. Ryan, quieter but sharper, turned to Lily. Did you sign for these packages? Lily's posture didn't change, but her eyes flicked, just once. I don't remember, she muttered. Packages get delivered all the time. Maybe it was an accident. It wasn't an accident. Kept my voice steady. The signatures were from 4 different days. My father cleared his throat, trying to regain control of a conversation he was never actually steering. Maybe someone else signed. Maybe a neighbor. A delivery person. They require household signatures, Dad. I tapped another receipt. And we checked the email logs. The invitation was opened on your shared account. The device ID matched Lily's phone. Lily's jaw tensed. Why are you digging through our email? That's invasive. Ryan turned slowly toward her. Lily, who has access to that account? Silenced. My father looked confused, as if the room had shifted under his feet. It's just us. Me, your mother. And you, Lily. He nodded. Exactly. And the timestamps line up. My invitations were delivered in June. My wedding was in July. Your wedding was in September. My mother's hand flew to her chest. What does that have to do with anything? It means mine happened first, I said. And acknowledging it would have meant Lily wasn't the center of the story for once. Lily snapped. Oh my God, Kat, you always twist things. I lifted my eyes to hers, unflinching. I'm not twisting anything. I'm showing you evidence you tried to hide. Her mask cracked, barely, but enough to expose the raw edges underneath. You think you're so quiet and harmless, but you don't get it, she said, her voice rising. Everyone feels guilty around you. Like we're never doing enough. You don't even have to try. The room froze. There it was. The truth. Not the one from receipts, but the one that had been pulsing beneath our family dynamic for decades. I inhaled slowly. I never made anyone feel small, Lily. I just didn't compete. My father looked pained. My mother looked offended on Lily's behalf. We did our best, she said softly, as if that sentence could patch over years of imbalance. For Lily, I replied. You did your best for her. And for me. I met their eyes one by one. You did the bare minimum. My voice didn't shake. For once, it filled the room without shrinking. And then I said the thing I'd been holding back my entire life. Top of form. Bottom of form. Top of form. Bottom of form. Top of form. Bottom of form. For a long moment, the room sits in stunned silence. Just the ticking of the old wall clock and the faint, uneven sound of Kat's breathing. She looks at each of them, not with anger, not even disappointment, but with a clarity that feels like stepping into sunlight after years underground. I didn't lose my family tonight, she says quietly. I just stopped pretending I had one. Her mother's eyes widen, panic rushing in. Kat, don't be dramatic. Kat shakes her head. You didn't need to say I was the problem. You showed it. All my life. Ryan's face drops, the truth landing heavier than anyone expected. For the first time he looks at his wife, the mother of his children, and sees the cracks. The silence she uses like a blade. The coldness she calls patience. Lily steps forward, voice barely a breath. Please don't go yet. But Kat stands, and when she does, the whole room seems to shift with her. Her father tries first. Honey, we can fix this. You can't fix what you refuse to acknowledge, she replies, her voice soft but unshakable. Her mother tries next, reaching out with a trembling hand. Catherine, wait. Kat steps back. You didn't miss my wedding. You chose not to see it. That lands like a final stone in still water, ripples spreading through every face in that room. She turns and walks to the door. Not storming, not crying, just done. Finished with carrying a weight she never agreed to hold. And Ethan is already there. Waiting. Jacket in hand. Eyes full of the kind of love that comes from witnessing the whole truth and staying anyway. Helen steps up behind him. "Your family here," she says gently. "Because you matter." Kat nods, chest tight, but in a good way, like something broken is finally being reset. Weeks pass. Life rearranges itself. Her dad finds the wedding invitation he hid months ago. He doesn't apologize, doesn't explain. Just quietly slips it into an envelope and mails it back to her. Small step, but a step. Her mother says nothing. And Kat finally understands. That silence is an answer, not a wound. Lily sends an email saying she started therapy. No excuses, no begging, just effort. And Kat, she builds a life where love actually shows up. Because in the end, she learns this. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up. It's who listens. It's who stays. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who never learned how to hold you. If any part of this felt familiar, drop a comment below and tell me your story. Have you ever had to walk away from family? What happened? And don't forget to subscribe, because next time, I'm sharing what happened when Lily showed up at my door 6 months later.